So what I'm going to present now is a part of a bigger project or study I'm doing which captures revitalization of older shopping malls. And here, at least, I would say 10 years old. But what I have done here is actually to compare inner city shopping malls with external shopping malls. So I will show you. So just before that, I'm an associate professor at the Department of Business Administration, and with regard to shopping malls, I do research mostly within customer satisfaction, patronage, and also revitalization of shopping malls. And but also on the commercial side, since 1999, I have analyzed a number of shopping malls. So here are now some of the examples from this region, and also actual city centers. So I have experience both from academic and practical side here. The purpose of this particular study and presentation deals with, we could say, two problems. So first of all, we have this new, bigger shopping malls entering the market. Every year we have a number of new and bigger malls. We are talking about overcrowding and so on. So that's one problem for a little bit older shopping malls. But then the other issue we have regards to the shopping malls that are in cities and town centers competing with those external, new, often external malls. So we have two issues here from the perspective of the inner city shopping malls. And we know that sales in basically every city center in comparison to external sales are decreasing since like 30 years back and all over the world. So we have a problem here. So the question is, being an older city center-based shopping mall, what can you do in this situation? I use a conceptual framework coming from, we're calling this attribute-based models, and they have a certain kind of consumer perspective or customer perspective, where we have 8 different attributes that are well known to trigger visits, spending, also word of mouth, and commitment, customer commitment. So, giving you some examples. So for example, atmosphere is often talked about the facilities, but also a sense of feeling, being in the premises. Access is often related to easiness to get to that center, whereas convenience is about how you can move around within the center. We have cafes and restaurants. We talked about that. That's important. Normally they play different roles. So in a city center, there can be like an added value, but outside they work as a service. You need to eat and drink and so on. but as I said, it might be that the role is changing, that you actually go to the external center for having coffee and eating. Entertainment is something that at least 10 years ago everyone talked about, and especially with regard to revitalization, having events and so on. That's the entertainment factor I'm talking about here, not the experience factor. Promotion is a tool. You can change the marketing strategy and so on. And we have the retail mix, of course, how many stores and what types of stores you have there. And finally, service, there's two sides to that. It could be how you're treated as a person, but also what type of service facilities you can get there. But basically, this is from international general research, what is relevant if you want to build a mall and what attracts customers. So what we want to do here is actually what have the different shopping malls done with regards to these different dimensions, and how have that affected what is happening here. So we try to evaluate investments, changes, and effects, or is there any effects at all? So the method here was we interviewed 100 shopping mall managers. We could say 50 in inner city malls and 50 external malls. And basically, I think we have about 300 malls all in Sweden, and I think about 200 of them has existed for more than 10 years or something like that. So this is a sample of 50-50, we could say. And we interviewed them with regard to what they had done between 2009 and 2011, and also there was open-ended and fixed question as well. So that was a little bit of discussion as well for interpretation and so on. And how did we assess the investments? Yes, we asked them how much they had spent, how much effort, and also how satisfied they were with the different investments on each of those attributes. Yeah, basically that's. And also we asked them about sales 1 year before and 1 year after, and we also supported those figures with databases that we collected. And also to compare to the customer perspective, we used market.se, who provides a yearly report on customer perceptions of about 250 malls. So we entered that into the analysis as well. So starting with the analysis from market.se on at least 7 out of the 8 dimensions, because they don't track entertainment. Instead they have parking, but we didn't have parking here. So comparing the different malls, inner city and external malls, we see that overall on 4 out of the 7 dimensions, statistically, we see that the external malls outperform the internal malls. The only aspects where they don't do is atmosphere, service, and cafes and restaurants. But so we could say that the circumstances or the conditions is quite different. And also we know that today it's the external malls that are growing. And the arrows that shows downward means that compared to previous years in the market.se report, they are going down for the internal city malls. The grades are going down. So now then, if we look at the data from the interviews, we asked them how much had they tried to improve the different malls. And we see that from a statistical point of view, they are very equal. Their efforts are basically the same. We could say that the strategies are similar. The only aspects where they are not similar is on access, meaning that the external malls have put more effort into improving access to their shopping malls. So what we did then, we tried to correlate the improvements, and this is particular only for the the inner city shopping malls. So this is basically the same data that I did present. These 50 malls, on average, how much did they spend on the 8 different attributes in order to improve them? And here on the vertical axis, we have the correlation to sales increase. So given the fact that, so here, for example, if there are some of the malls that did invest in and improve the entertainment value in terms of events and so on, it had basically no statistical impact on sales at all. And in the top, for example, investing in access or atmosphere or retail mix had a huge impact on improvements in sales. So in the upper left, that means if something we find it there, it's investments or improvements that have had big effect on sales, but very few have utilized that type of improvement. So we see, for example, basically we see access is very clear on that, in that box. And up to the right, we have investments or improvements that many of the inner city malls have made, and that also have had a significant impact. So there we have, as I said, retail mix and atmosphere. Down here, we have aspects that they have improved, but that hadn't had that much effect. We could see like promotion. I mean, it's in between, we could say. And as I said, entertainment, cafes, and restaurant, I would say that improvements there has not had much effect. But still, we have a significant effect, but here is not a significant effect at all. A level of revitalization and capital investments. It's a revitalization overall there, it's their overall assessment, and capitalization is their assessment of their spending. And then we did the same, the performance, so these attributes should be on the same place here, but then we asked the management what would be the ideal if they could decide from their point of view what type of improvements would have the biggest effects. And we could say that basically it's the same map or pattern, meaning that the shopping mall managers has a pretty good idea of what type of improvements that counts, and probably that's good. But again, we see that access is a little bit of a problem. So I wanted to conclude here, but then continue on with showing you examples of during the interviews and my experience, what could access issues be. But to summarize, the conclusions here, I would say that first of all, we see that revitalization actually things happens. You can improve sales by improving the mall on certain aspects. And actually, I didn't say it here, but looking at comparing the types of malls, we see that doing something with the external malls don't have the same effects as doing something and improving the inner city malls. I think also one important thing here is that retail mix and atmosphere, we shouldn't forget that. And also said that entertainment, and I'm just joking here, saying that it's dead. And it's mostly because of 10 years ago, as I said, a lot of efforts and discussions and reports were into. We were talking about the experience economy, but many interpreted that as events, clowns, and all those things. And that don't seem to work or be a way out. But I think the main conclusion here, with exception from the same strategies but very different circumstances. My main conclusion here, that as Jonathan referred to, is actually then that management knows, and we can see that access is one of the major important attributes to improve. But still, during the interviews, they said that we can't, it's out of our control. Often it's related to what the city can do. And instead, we have to put more effort in promotion that we really not believe in. If we could choose, we would go for better access. But we are limited to the boundaries and situation of being in the city. So I want to focus now on access. What could that be? If we look at previous research and what management talked about here, we see that, for example, parking lots, there's different theories about the optimal type of parking space. Access to it with cars could look like that. But also for pedestrians as well as those arriving with bikes. It's not that, it's not just to say that we are going to do that. That's almost maybe as difficult as creating access for cars as well. And there's issues about parking place, how close to shopping should they be, how long should you park, and so on. And going shopping with bikes, you have to have solutions where you can park near the shops, you have your kid, and things you have bought. So for example, parking, if we look at interviews, research, and so on, if we interview people and they do experiments with different parking solutions, open sky is one of the most important aspects when you choose your parking space. Also ground level. People don't like to go underground or up several stairs with their car. Payment system. The preferred one is that you pay, you leave your car and go out and pay. Actually, though, you don't like these machines and the line behind you, and even though it's very easy, but from a social risk point of view, those payment systems with bars and so on could be quite stressing for many customers. Also, we have this pocket type of parking. It's not, if you recall, when you took your driver's license. That was the worst thing you could imagine. And of course, it happened. Larger space is very important as well. And also the time. If we look at many of the visits to the store, it's only about 15 to 30 minutes. It's very seldom, actually, that you do this long shopping trips, shopping for 2, 3, 4 hours. Often it's maybe you have bought some trousers and you have had them to the tailor and just picking them up again, and it goes very fast and quick. And then you want to park very close and solve that problem in a few minutes and so on. And of course, in weekends and so on, you can use the open sky. being just like the external malls by using schoolyards and so on. Here is a picture of a Tesla parking. So this is a new challenge we are seeing, parking your electronic vehicle and so on. And we have this environmental issue, and maybe here's things to think about. Here's two pictures from Malmö. So this is entering the Hansa-garaget in Malmö, and this is Mobilia parking lot, or open sky. And as you see here, it's dark, narrow, bars, and a lot of signs and regulations, and you are going up here. And maybe you need to be an expert in order to get in there. I lived up on the roof of the Hansa company for a number of years, and when we had visitors, it was basically that we need to come down and help them to drive the car up in the parking house. This is Hansa company. Here's the city, and we say that we want to get visitors to come by bike instead of cars. So for Hansa's point of view, entering the Hansa garage, not a good experience. But here, if you come by bicycle, this is 1 hour before the center opens. There's a lot of places to park your bikes, but none of them, everyone is occupied. So if you come by bike, you have to leave your bike in the street, and you can't lock it onto anything. Here's the Pedestrian Street, where we had Storgatan shopping mall that went bankrupt a few years ago. And looking at the Pedestrian Street, there's basically no place to park your bike. And I saw the evaluation that they had from the city, where they suggested that parking should be away from the pedestrian street, maybe a few blocks even. But then in New York, I saw this on Broadway even. Outside each and every store, they had this designed bicycle racks for 2 bikes. So if you had a short visit to do, you could park it there. And of course, if you have your kid and all those bags on it, and you have your bike, of course you want to bring it with them, so when you're finished, you can go home. And finally, yes, again outside Hansa-kompaniet, where we have a street, but no one seems to know what type of street it is, because that's the main access way to Hansa-kompaniet. And over here outside, I think it says for pedestrian. Here it says gångfartsled. I think everyone can be there as long as you go in the same pace as pedestrians. And then next to that we have only pedestrians again. But still, if you watch, it's only bicycles here, a few cars, no one dares to walk here. But still, if you're going with bikes, we don't have anywhere to put the bike. So of course, and who's to blame here? It's very difficult to say. I would say number one, it should be the shopping mall should be talking to the community and so on. And of course next, but I think we have access being one of the major issues. We need to understand what is it, because actually I think from the Hansa-kompaniet's point of view, the solutions here would be quite simple, but not full to 100%, of course, but a lot of solutions just by looking here. So this is what I had in this study.